Subscribe to our YouTube channel for in-depth interviews of India Inc. and press the bell icon so that you do not miss our updates.
Hello and welcome to Nirmal, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Hiral Dadia. We have with us Abinash Verma, Director General at ISMA, joining in. Abinash, welcome to the show and a pleasure to speak to you as always. My first question coming to you is with regards to the pandemic. We spoke at that point in time as well. Yes, demand was slow, but gradually it started to pick up as well. According to you, are we back to pre COVID levels?
Yes. Hi, good morning, everybody. I believe we are back to pre-COVID levels, but the last 3 months we are seeing that the demand is not as good as we expected. A lot of sugar mills are not able to sell sugar as per the quota, but that we believe is more because of some people selling more than the allocated quota by the government, and therefore they are kind of getting into the area of the people who are more disciplined and following the quota system. So the first 3 months of October, November, and December, people sold, the total sale was as per the quotas given by the government, but some people sold more, some people sold less. So to answer your question, I believe that we are back to the pre-pandemic level of consumption of sugar.
Right. So with that, another aspect is that almost 30 to 33 sugar mills have stopped production. So what's the reason for that? I mean, is it mainly because consumption is lower, even in the, or are we not able to export that much? Or even with regards to where the, OMCs are concerned, we've been hearing that there is difficulty from their end as well with regards to where lifting of ethanol goes. So what's the reason for this stoppage of production?
The closure of a sugar mill, closure of operations in a season is only because the sugar cane available to them gets over.
Hmm.
And I mean, different patches in the state or different patches in a country have different quantities of sugar cane. And therefore, some areas will have more sugar cane, some areas will have less sugar cane. So these 38 sugar mills would have closed. These are normal closure, which generally start from the middle of February and will go until
Hmm.
the end of April or so. So people having more sugar cane will probably last till April end or beginning of May also. So this is normal closure. It is not related to demand. It is not related
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
ethanol production or ethanol supplies, purely related to sugarcane availability.
Right. With this, Abinash, another aspect is that every year, I think the industry produces almost around 60 lakh tons of sugar. Now, ISMA has been trying to make a roadmap that every year we reduce our surplus sugar by 20 lakh tons. And the aim is that by 2023, I think, have a zero surplus by diversion to ethanol. Would you be able to highlight the roadmap for us?
Yes, I mean, the main reason for that is that we are uncompetitive in the international market, and therefore we have to rely on the export subsidies that the government of India gives us. You would be also aware that under the WTO rules, developing countries like India can give export subsidies for agri products, including for sugar, up to December 2023.
Hmm.
And therefore, if we do not have export subsidies from the 1st of January 2024, we'll have to find ways to reduce that surplus sugar that we are carrying. Now, there is an alternative with that we can divert some of the sugarcane juice or the B heavy molasses away from sugar and into production of ethanol.
Hmm.
And therefore, over the next 3 years, we are developing our ethanol production capacities. The demand is also growing from the OMC side. The government is also supporting us. So from here on, we are looking at a phase-wise reduction in that surplus by about 20 lakh tons every year, so that by end of December, we would have kind of diverted that 60 lakh tons of surplus into ethanol and not produce
Hmm.
that surplus sugar from January 2024 or so.
Right. But with that, right now, we've been hearing that the OMCs are not lifting enough ethanol in some states. What's the reason for that? And are we expecting this to be corrected sooner or later?
Yes, totally. I mean, we certainly expect and we are pretty sure that the OMCs will correct this position. The main reason, I would say it's a temporary reason, a teething problem, since we are increasing the ethanol supplies very quickly and very fast. The best ever ethanol supplies that we gave to the oil companies was 2 years back, about 190 crore liters, 190 crore liters. And this year, the allocation received from the oil companies is already at 325 crore liters. And therefore, our supplies are going to newer depots, new states, and over a longer distances. So all these teething problems, because when we move to a new depot, either the depot is not geared up, or they don't have enough tankage capacity, or they don't have the technical facilities to blend 10% ethanol with petrol. So these are teething problems, I believe, initial period. Secondly, what has also happened in some of the depots earlier, the old depots, the OMCs have made a mistake in the calculation, in the estimation of the demand. Because of COVID, the demand is still not as much as they had expected, and therefore they are unable to take our ethanol supplies as per the contracts, and are asking us to relocate to another state or to faraway depots, for which we have requested that if they can compensate us for the extra transport cost, which will be borne by us, so that we don't lose money in that extra transportation. So we had a discussion with Ministry of Petroleum, Ministry of Food. I believe that things are getting solved, and once the extra transport cost is also reimbursed to us, then that problem will get over. So it's a very, very temporary phenomenon, and this will come for the next probably couple of years every time when we move to newer depots.
Right. So with this, as the government had targeted, say, 10% blending by 22, 20% blending by 2025, do you think this is something which is achievable, or there are chances, taking the current situation into consideration, that the program could be jeopardized for some reason?
Achieving 10% in 2022, I think is very, very realistic, and we are there, almost there. There are no technical issues, no implementation issues, no regulation issues to achieve that 10%. Beyond 10%, when we are talking about reaching 20% by 2025, there are 3 or 4 things that the government will need to do, the oil companies will need to do, the automobile manufacturers will need to do. We are developing capacities pretty fast with government support. And not only is the government looking at getting all the ethanol only from sugar or the sugarcane juice, but also from maize or broken rice or surplus rice and alternate feedstock also. We in the sugar industry are also developing our distillery so that we have dual feed. In season, we use sugarcane juice. Off season, we can do rice or maize, so that more and more capacities can come. But when we talk about moving from 10% to 20%, we'll have to do it in stages. We can't suddenly decide on the 1st of January 2025 that from 10% we need to move to 20%. We have to do it phase wise. Now, whether that phase-wise implementation is possible with the automobile manufacturers, with their existing cars, with the new cars, all these technical things will have to be sorted out. How does the retail pump also develop capacities, tankage capacities? Because when you talk about 20%, you will have to also improve the tankage capacity at the retail pumps. You will have to look at the engines as well as the material compatibility in the existing cars, as far as the performance of the existing car engines at 10% and then 20%. All these things will need to be sorted out. There is a kit that we have found that which can convert your existing vehicle into flex fuel vehicles, which is being used in Europe and America and Brazil and all, which can take anywhere between 0% to 85% ethanol. So your existing old cars can move from the current 10% to 85% once that kit is fitted into your engines. So we'll have to develop that, get the technical know-how, get the clearances, get the regulations in place. What I'm saying is, if we move from 10% in 2022 to 25 to 20% by 2025, a lot of things need to do. The
Right.
government will have to bring in the regulations, the automobile manufacturers, the depots, oil depots will need to gear up, the OMCs will have to improve their retail pumps, etc.
Right. So all the efforts that will be needed to move from a 20% blend, 10% blending to a 20% blending, how much of a government role is needed in terms of, say, infrastructure to accelerate this conversion?
See, if you talk about the regulations, first of all, we'll have to get the BIS standards. The BIS standards currently is available for 10% ethanol blending with petrol and 20% ethanol blending. There is no BIS standards for 12% or 15% or so. So those BIS standards will have to come into implementation So first step by the government we'll have to have the BIS standards. I believe in September 2020, the government has requested BIS to form the standards. I don't know why, despite 6 months have passed and they have not brought in those standards. So that is number one. Number two, as far as infrastructure is concerned, as I mentioned, the oil companies will need to improve their tankage capacities across the country in all the oil depots. Today, if they are geared up to take 10% ethanol blending, they'll have to move to 20% because we are immediately ready. In fact, we can start with 20% blending immediately in Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, and the neighboring states because we have surplus ethanol produced in these three states. Instead of, say, moving ethanol from Uttar Pradesh to Rajasthan or to Tamil Nadu, why can't we increase the blend percentages? So the infrastructure is required to be increased not only at the production level from our side, but also at the consumption level or the receiving level at the OMCs.
Right. And with this, another aspect is with regards to where the exports are concerned. Uh, Now, one thing is, I think the quota with regards to exports was something that got announced in the month of December 2020. Has that really caused a concern with the overall exports right now? Because I think the last number I heard was about 25 lakh tons of sugar that have been contracted for exports in this season.
Yes, I mean, we lost, I would say, about 3 months, October, November, and December, because we were expecting the government. Traditionally, the government announces the export program sometime between July and September, so that we start contracting and start kind of making the raw sugar from October itself and start exporting. So the announcement came very late in December 2020. So I believe 3 months of crucial time we lost, and a lot of sugar mills could have made more raw sugar, so that period also we lost. Nevertheless, the global market has supported us from January because the global market only improved. The global prices are at a higher 3-year high, and therefore there is a good demand. Thailand has not produced as much as they usually produce, probably 50% of what they were producing 2 years back. EU has not produced. Brazil has a problem in their dispatches. Vessels are not moving as quickly as they want to. There is a long queue there. So all those things are helping India get that opportunity. Currently, I would say we would have contracted for 32 lakh tons of sugar exports. Most of it is going to Indonesia. Last year, we did 11 lakh tons to Iran. There is a small clarification that we have sought from the government. Once that clarification comes, Iran will also start buying from India. So all these together, there is, I would say, too much of hype created by some of the traders saying that enough containers are not there, enough vessels
Correct.
are not there, trucks, there is a problem. During this time when we are trying to export more and more, these problems will come. But nevertheless, I believe that we should be on target to do the target that the government has fixed for us for 6 million tons of exports.
Right. And then with the exports as well, I think the subsidy that is given by the government is around 6 rupees. Do you think that's something which would probably fill the gap between the domestic and international prices right now, taking the circumstances into consideration?
Yes, I mean, the gap is good enough. The subsidy from the government of 6 rupees is good enough to fill that gap. The global prices have moved up. That has helped us kind of cover that extra freight cost because the diesel prices have gone up within the domestic market. The crude prices have also jumped, and therefore the ocean freight has also gone up. So the global prices also simultaneously moving up along with that 6 rupees of subsidy has kind of helped us cover that extra freight cost also. So 6 rupees is good enough. And that is why you are seeing in 2 months, in January, February, the quota was announced on 31st of December. In 2 months, we have almost signed about 32 lakh tons of exports out of 60 lakh tons of target.
Right. And with that, if you talk about the domestic market as well, I think the last when the government fixed the MSP was February 2019. And currently, what's the required MSP that the industry is looking at from a 31 rupees?
See, first of all, as you correctly mentioned, it's been 2 years since the MSP was last fixed in February 2019. Uh, a lot of our input costs have gone up, which should be accounted for, number one. Number two, we have submitted to the government that there was a mistake when you calculated the cost of production at 31 rupees, because you did not include our repair and maintenance cost, the depreciation cost, the interest burden on term loans, because everything has to be paid from the same revenue pot, no, at the end of the day. The government accepted that. The group of ministers under Mr. Amit Shah, the Honorable Home Minister, also recommended in July that the prices should be increased, MSP should be increased to 33. Way back in April 2020, the Niti Aayog also recommended that the prices should be increased to 33 rupees MSP at the mill gate. After that, the government has increased the FRP effective from 1st October 2020 by 10 rupees or so. So that also has an impact on our cost of production to the tune of 1 rupee per kilo. So therefore, now we have requested the government that overall you should increase the MSP to 34 rupee 50 paise. We believe that the government was worried because there was a food inflation, there was this general inflation in the country. But now that the food inflation and general inflation is probably at its lowest in the last couple of years, I believe that the government should be examining this increase in MSP seriously now.
Right, but are we expecting something like this in the near term?
I am expecting this since the last 3 months, and I continue to expect that the government. But the reason I thought the government didn't take a decision was the inflation consideration. Now that that is kind of a story behind us, the government should be taking a decision on MSP.
Right. And overall, with regards to the sugar price trend as well, now very, or I mean, every time we've seen that the moment the prices go firm in the global market, we see domestic prices firming up as well, Abinash. How is the trend looking like from here on? Do you think sugar will get more expensive?
See, I mean, that should have been a natural kind of a result if the global prices move up, because we are exporting 6 million tons into the international market, that the global prices moving up should have an impact on the domestic market. But since we have too much of surplus in the country and we are unable to sell everything, and there are people selling beyond the quota, and there is a competition to sell more and more, the domestic prices are not moving up. Even though the global prices in the last, I would say, 3 months has moved up by 20-25%, the domestic prices have not moved up. In fact, the domestic prices have only come down. That is mainly because of too much of sugar, which is blocking our cash flows, as well as the pressure to pay to the farmers. Both together is not allowing us to kind of get a better price for our sugar in the domestic market. The sugar prices may move up by a rupee or two here and there, but I don't think the global prices are going to influence the domestic prices so much that the domestic prices move up to say 35 or 36 or more. It's not going to happen.
Okay. Right. And overall, right now, where do the arrears stand with regards to where cane farmers are concerned?
See, I don't have the latest figures, but I believe it should be all India level, should be around 18,000 or 20,000 crore of cane price areas across the country. And the crushing period is still on for another 1 month or so. And generally, we see that the cane price areas peak by 31st of March every year to 15th of April. So if it is already at 18,000, 19,000 crore, I fear that if no MSP is in, that if the MSP is not increased and some help is not given by the government, then the cane price areas will only increase to 20-25,000 crore in the next 1 month or so.
Right. And overall, Abinash, always, this is a pressing question with regards to the arrears that we talk about. Do you see a situation where the arrears ever could be nil, or the most realistic arrears amount, what would that be for the industry according to you?
See, first of all, we'll have to find a way to develop a relationship between the sugarcane price and the revenue that we get from sugar. Currently, there is absolutely no relationship. The government of India fixes the FRP, and the FRP keeps on increasing every year by a certain percentage, even if the domestic ex-mill prices are going to fall next year or have fallen by a significant number. So if there is no relationship between the two, obviously if 85% of my revenue comes only from sugar, then if the sugar prices are going to come down, I'm unable to pay the FRP. Therefore, to answer your question, the ideal situation will be a linkage between the sugar cane price and the revenue from sugar, which is an international practice, which is what is recommended by the Rangarajan Committee, which is what is being recommended by CACP, which has been recommended by Niti Aayog. So all the committees, all the top authorities have recommended a linkage between the two. Once that linkage comes and you develop what is called as a price stabilization fund, to kind of take care of the gap between what we can pay as the revenue sharing formula and what the government wants the farmers to get in the form of the FRP. Then the price stabilization fund can bridge that gap. So what then happens? The farmers get the FRP that the government promises. We pay as per whatever is the revenue that we earn, and therefore there'll be no gap between what we have to pay and the cane price areas will not get developed. And at the same time, we become competitive domestic as well as internationally.
Right. And very lastly, Abinash, with regards to where the sugar output is concerned, I think the number that we're looking at is around 30.2 million tons. Any revisions expected on that front?
Not yet. I don't think we are getting any feedback from the field that there will be a big difference to whatever we are saying today. So 30.2 has been revised in the end of January by us. So 1 month since then, we'll have a look at it in our next meeting, probably in a month's time, to see whether we need to revise it downwards or upwards. But I don't think there'll be a big difference to whatever we are seeing today.
Right. Avinash, one last question coming in is, do the existing vehicles are they equipped to take 10% blending, or they need to be changed to use, more than 10% blending?
I would suggest just go back and look at the manual that you have in your car, and you will see your car will say 10% ethanol blended petrol can be taken.
Yeah.
So currently, my belief is, unless their car is very old or 15 years old or something, but most of the cars running on the road are 10% ethanol blended petrol compliant, both compliant from the point of view of performance as well as from the point of view of material compatibility. When we move beyond 12%, I believe, because there is a study from IOC Lucknow, which says that up to 13%, there will be no problem in the existing engine. It will be material compatible as well as performance will be good. But when we move beyond 13%, then the questions come on the material compatibility as well as the performance of the engine.
Thank you. Thank you, Abinash, so much for joining us on the show. Pleasure speaking to you. Great insights as always. Stay safe. Speak to you soon again, and hope you enjoyed the conversation as well.
Thank you. Thanks. All the best. Thanks a lot. Bye.